Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 196, and early Happy New Year's to the Wolfpack. I know it's a couple days out from now, but the next Red Pill will be next Sunday, and in the meantime, New Year's will pass. So just wanted to let you all know that I really am so grateful for everything we're doing here. I can't even believe we're closing in on year 4 here in our mastermind community. Time flies. So we have to get straight into this one today because I have some very important updates to start this one out. Of course, if you were tuned in last week, I know most of you have successfully connected your Discord account within Patreon during our Discord server upgrade and our scheduled maintenance last week, and I appreciate you for doing so. But for those of you that have not done this yet and would like to continue to have access to our Discord, this is your final chance. We're just extending this phase out without doing another lockdown inside of our Discord. This is the most perfect and seamless way we could have organized it, so that way you all can continue to have Discord access during this final phase of our upgrade. So if you haven't done this yet, please go over to your Patreon account and you will see a pinned post over here under the title Deadline to Complete, December 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, so later tonight effectively. And this post includes a 1-minute video with a very simple tutorial for how you can set this up correctly. And if you've happened to have any issues with connecting your Patreon account during this process regarding setting up Patreon and connecting it to your Discord account, then please consider the following. The most important is to not use the Patreon mobile app, because this process will not work using the Patreon mobile app on your phone. But if you need to use your phone to do this process, I completely understand. You'll just need to do it on your phone's browser. For instance, if you have an iPhone, you just open up your Safari browser application on your iPhone and then just watch this video and follow the steps carefully. Also, if you have the option of using your laptop or desktop, I'd highly recommend you do so, because it'll make the process go so much smoother. And the odds are you won't run into any issues, but if for some reason you do still experience any issues while you're using your laptop, for instance, then please try the following: turning off your VPN if you have one turned on, and turn off any ad blockers if you might have one on your browser. In this case, I'd actually recommend using Safari browser with your VPN turned off, because Brave browser, for instance, has ad blockers, and that could cause some issues during this process. Then after you go ahead and connect your Patreon account to Discord within the Patreon platform, there's nothing else you'll need to do. No further action needed. As for any new members who've joined, I'm currently pausing sending new Discord invites just during this final stage of this Discord upgrade. So if you've just joined our mastermind community, you'll receive instructions on how to join our Discord server at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on December 29th. Then moving forward, you'll see a pinned post here in Patreon titled Start Here, with a tutorial video for how to join our Discord server on both your mobile and laptop desktop computer. Thanks to our moderator, Clementine, who has worked really hard to collaborate with me on this so we can make this process so much more easier moving forward. And technically, we could start focusing more on the value provided in the art and not so much on the troubleshooting and giving all this prep in the beginning of our red pills, trying to explain this process every single week. Also, please do not comment below in this post if you're having any trouble with this process, because the comment section of this Red Pill podcast is what we use as our voting system for the altcoins I'll cover on next week's Red Pill podcast. So please don't get impatient and start commenting here if you're having any issues with this process, because everything is covered in this tutorial video. So if you haven't completed this task already, please take this next minute to pause this Red Pill podcast, go over to the pinned Patreon post shown here, and complete the task explained in this video. It'll only take you 1 minute, and then you could come back here when you're done. Otherwise, if you do not complete this task by 9 p.m. Eastern Time, on December 29th, you will lose access to our Discord server, so I'd appreciate you taking a minute to do this to prevent any headaches after this deadline. And starting next week, In the Red Pill podcast after New Year's, you won't be hearing anything more about this Patreon and Discord integration. So I appreciate your patience if these updates sound repetitive, but please just understand that we've been using the old system here for almost 4 years. And moving forward with upgrading to this new system, it was not easy for us. It's been countless hours of work behind the scenes with a focus on making this whole process go as smoothly as possible. So I appreciate you hanging in there and dealing with this. And we could just consider it like end of the year housekeeping. And also, a couple very important updates. Moving forward, I have effectively adjusted my schedule in preparation for launching WatersAbove University, which some of you are already aware of, and the university will open up for enrollment in a little over a week from today. So if you're interested in enrolling in WatersAbove University, more info on that is coming very soon. So I just wanted to let you know about a couple changes to my schedule. First and foremost, the Red Pill podcast here will actually be released a little earlier than usual, which I suspect is great news for everyone. And regarding the exact time of release, I can't commit to that. This, at the end of the day, is something I create every week. Nobody is working with me on this. I have to take all the data and generate it and work on it. It's a work of art in a sense. I'm not just sitting here reviewing random stuff or this takes many hours, so it's not something that I could commit to a release time for. It would be physically impossible, since especially this market is rapidly moving, it's always changing, it's variable, etc. I'm sure most of you know this. So I can't commit to any specific time, but like I said a little bit earlier, it will be released earlier than the usual time that I've been posting it for pretty much the past 4 years. And yes, we're still sticking to Sunday as Red Pill Day, so not the biggest change in the world. But also, moving forward, I cannot commit to doing live streams anymore. Perhaps I will pop in once in a while to do one, but for 2025, my focus is WatersAbove University. So just so you're aware, for those who join us on that new journey, one thing I can tell you is that WatersAbove University will include a weekly group coaching call or an AMA, an Ask Me Anything, and we'll rotate between those every other week. So you'll be getting a weekly meeting hosted by me every week, included in your university membership, and it is going to be an annual membership, so it's for the whole year of 2025. So for 1 week, we'll do a group coaching session that's focused on what we're covering in the university that week, and then the following week, I'll host an AMA for our university for anyone to ask me anything that they're interested in, and this way we could have a completely uncensored chat. And I know adding these weekly sessions to the university is going to provide even more value, and I'm really excited to launch this in a couple weeks. But I just wanted to let you all know here first that I've needed to make these necessary adjustments in order for me to actualize my potential, which is exactly what the focus of WatersAbove University is all about. New year, 2025, it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself, to develop the mindset, skills, and consciousness to actualize your highest potential and truly embody your holistic vision of success. So if anyone here is interested in WatersAbove University, I'll have an update coming out very soon explaining all the details in preparation for enrollment. And in the meantime, no need to reach out to customer support or message me regarding this. I, again, will be sharing a very thorough update, likely early next week, right after New Year's. So really looking forward to that. I know it's gotten a lot of interest lately, and I've committed to the timeline for enrollment starting about a week from now, and then it will be launching officially in just a couple weeks, right there at the beginning of 2025. And lastly, just real quick, holiday sale on my courses will be live until New Year's for the next couple days, and this will likely be my last sale I have all the way until Black Friday next year. So November 2025, about a year from now. So if you're interested in taking advantage of this while it's still live, you can go over to watersabove.com/store and use your exclusive Patreon member promo code, which is 25MMX at checkout. That'll also be written in the description of this video and in the pinned comment below. I really am so appreciative and grateful for all of your support. And I've just decided to extend out this for the end of the year, and it will be effectively over. No more sales going until Black Friday 2025. So this is the final chance for this, and I'm really looking forward to this next phase of the bull run together. That being said, let's get into this market and recap what went down over the past week. So all in all, when we're looking at the daily chart, crypto market was pretty much holding sideways into these final days of the year. And of course, we do have a couple more days left in the year, and a lot could go down, especially in the traditional markets opening up tomorrow. But it would, of course, be great to see a rebound into our yearly close coming up on Tuesday night. But when checking out the yearly candle, which I just had up on the screen, I would have to admit that 125% move up is pretty epic, especially for an asset that's ranked 7th in market cap, just under Amazon and Google. And even more impressive is the fact that last year in 2023, this candle right here, we had a 155% gain on the year. So anyone who bought on New Year's 2023 Bitcoin, you're up almost 500% right now. Pretty incredible, I would say. And comparing this to Ethereum, which would only be, and I don't even really mean to say only, because in stock market world, this is pretty face melting, but Ethereum just shy of 200%. So Bitcoin clearly outperforming Ethereum in that metric. And when checking in on XRP, also quite an incredible move, believe it or not, over 550% gain if you were to have bought New Year's January 2023. Also very, very impressive, all things considered. And when you're looking at this candle right here, we're effectively about to close higher, unless something was to go down in the next couple days, but we would be closing our highest yearly candle ever for XRP. That's a pretty important thing to accomplish. So I think this is the best place to start off today's Red Pill, number 196, the New Year special, since we're just a couple days out from the Gregorian New Year and transition into the year 2025. And of course, the next Red Pill will be next Sunday on January 5th. So let's open up the Bitcoin index chart, take off all the noise. I would like to get back to the yearly candles. And we're going to look at a pattern that's been happening on the yearly starting during the transition in 2013 into 2014, where we have one red candle followed by 3 green candles, and then we see this pattern repeating. And it's still playing out to this day, a decade later. We'll soon be completing our second green candle right after the red yearly candle that we got in 2022, which was the last Shemitah year. And interestingly enough, the second green candle of when this pattern started, which would have been the year of 2016, if you look right there, when I hover my cursor, it will say 126%, which look at what we're doing today, where I hover my cursor and you'll see it says 124, basically 125%. So we're pretty much on pace for the same exact move that we had back in 2016 with a much lower market cap. And I think that's also something quite important to talk about, because you're going to notice here we're zooming out when a lot of people are getting confused, zooming into smaller time frames. They're probably disregarding this macro analysis. And that's really what I wanted to focus on today here in this New Year's special, is the macro analysis, because what we're about to go through might undo some of the pain that some people might be feeling if you're brand new to the market and you have yet to experience 30, 40, 50, maybe even 70% mid-cycle corrections in the midst of a bull run. Well, welcome to another day in the Matrix, because this is what you signed up for here in crypto. This is pretty much par for the course. In crypto, you'll see a 400% move, and then you'll see 30 days of a 40% correction, and then you'll see it go up again another 400%, and you'll be like, why did I feel so shitty and down when it was 30% corrected after a 400% gain? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, because I feel like it's so important. And I've been holding the same energy now pretty much since before the election happened, in regards to our awareness of what would likely be the case after the October solar eclipse. So we're going to be covering that a lot today as well. Really going to be a jam-packed, value-packed podcast. So I hope you're ready for this one. And I apologize again for the long intro. It's just, this is something that was the first time in 4 years, and we needed to grind through this because the change that it will make will be so much better for everyone. And I even have some new changes to come regarding the altcoin voting system. I'm not entirely sure how I want to go about that, but I do believe a more optimized system is coming soon. Once we get those two things out of the way, it's just about little changes within our Discord, making things better and better every month. It's what my goal is, of course, to just always optimize. But anyways, let's get back to this. We had this red yearly candle for the Shemitah year, and interestingly enough, we had this 2016 candle nearly identical to what we're dealing with now. And as you're all aware, my comparison of the year 2017 with the XRP chart and how it broke out of this phase 5 here, let me quickly get to that. Turn off some of this noise again. Been talking about this a lot. Unless you're absolutely brand new to my channel, you know we've been tracking this phase 5 and how the time horizon for the breakout to be anticipated into this exact moment we're in right now. And if we were to consider what happened in that 2017 cycle, that would actually be a similar timing for us moving into 2025 with a very bullish Q1 for XRP. And you see this phase right here. Apologies, I'm going to edit this. It's really there. Sorry. Sometimes when you change things around, it skews and scales differently depending on the time that you have selected, whether it be daily, 12 hour, etc. Anyways, what matters most is this right here, pointing to this area because it's very much what was going on in phase 1. We were retesting phase 1 after phase 5, and this took 30 days. And if we were to track where we're at right now, 30 days would be aligning with like 3 or 4 days from today. So again, we're right on track, and the fact that we're getting this stall out near prior all-time highs or phase 1, and we're chopping around this exact area, which would effectively be the 888 fib, it's identical. It's nearly identical. So I find this pretty fascinating when I looked at the yearly candles for Bitcoin and see that the exact move that we did in 2016 in regards to the yearly close is pretty much the exact same percentage move that Bitcoin has just accomplished right now here in 2024, moving into 2025. So this is something that we were anticipating since XRP was 50 cents around the final solar eclipse of our solar cycle. Now we can see XRP has been holding the $2 level now like an absolute champion. We can officially say that XRP has 28 daily closes above $2. That's 4 total weeks. We'll call it a month. Now compared to back in the beginning of 2018, which was over here, XRP only had 9 daily closes above $2. Here in 2024, we've traded above $2 for 3 times longer than XRP was trading at back in its final moments of price discovery almost 7 years ago. So clearly XRP is looking very strong right now by that metric, trading a full month at $2. And remember, this is the first time XRP has been trading above $2 in nearly 7 years. So this is another clear sign of strength for XRP. But getting back to this Bitcoin yearly analysis, let me pull up this chart right here. All right. Oh, and don't worry, I'll be covering the XRP yearly analysis a little later in this podcast as well, so you could expect that too. And when we revisit the yearly candle pattern for the macro Bitcoin chart, we'll see that the third green candle ends up being what we would call in the Wyckoff method a buying climax. It's when all the buying pressure is exhausted and you top out, and then you have a major correction which leads to your bear market. Well, this buying climax right here, we have the example of 2017, and then we have 4 years, you have from over here to this following cycle, and then from here to the next following cycle is 4 years, and then you have from 2021 over to 2025 would effectively be the third green candle after the one red candle that started this pattern back in 2014. So this is perhaps something you've all seen already. Anyone who follows any Bitcoin content is likely to have seen this before. So we're not going to spend too much time here. Again, it's a friendly reminder to some people who might be brand new to this game and you've maybe just jumped in like post-election and now you're like, what's going on? I thought we were like, and it's too much for people. They disregard that XLM, HBAR, and like a bunch of these projects have moved up 400% in like 30 days. And now it's like, it's getting sweaty. And I'm just going to be the calm reminder that it's going to be okay. It's really going to be okay. Getting back to this, we have two distinct phases in regards to 2025, or what would be our third green candle in this pattern. One would be the end of the solar cycle, and two would be the beginning, effectively, of the next lunar cycle. And this has one date. It would be the transition of March 14th, 2025, which is just about 2.5 months from when I filmed this podcast. And if you happen to have my crypto decoding blueprint, which is included in my decoding mastermind, that's also actually included in my decoding mastermind for free, by the way. And if you have this decoding mastermind, I hope you've been enjoying the new Trinity Masterclass that I just added to that course. Trinity Masterclass has some absolutely wild visual presentations in that. Crazy. Pretty much poured my heart and soul into that one. But this crypto decoding blueprint that I'm referencing, I clearly put emphasis on the start of our lunar cycle in mid-March. This is the date that we were just talking about right here, March 14th. And this right here is something I also mentioned. It has to do with a theory that I have called a double peak cycle, not to be confused with a double top. If I was to pull up the daily chart, you'd see what I mean by the double top, because it was what happened in our last cycle here in 2021. But this double peak cycle brings up the fact that in the last lunar cycle, we actually saw Bitcoin push up one last time, which was right here. We had our lunar cycle click on this March total lunar eclipse in 2021. We saw a crazy correction topping up before that. And then we did rise up one last time before this second lunar eclipse in our lunar cycle. And if we were to see where that is for this upcoming lunar cycle, it would be September 7th. So this pretty much points to the very end of August and the very beginning of September for a possible second peak or another surge to the upside after a pretty dramatic correction that I would anticipate somewhere into April, May of 2025. It, of course, can start to be noticeable in the month of March, but this is all kind of contextual because when we talk about Bitcoin and we talk about the stock market or we talk about altcoins, we're going to have slightly different energies that are controlling all of this. Again, I covered all thoroughly in my crypto decoding blueprint, but getting back to this is a theory that I suppose I shared at least maybe over a year and 3 months before it's even going to happen. So hopefully those who've invested in that crypto decoding blueprint, well, it's already paid itself back with everything that's happened after the fourth solar eclipse of our solar cycle thus far. But, this is a pretty crazy gem. Comparing where we were at in 2012 into 2013 was the transition between the year of the dragon and the year of the snake, like we're in right now. And the fact that we did this before. So when I say double peak cycle, I'm talking about this right here, where we topped out, we had a major correction. Believe it or not, that happened in April. And then we stalled out until July, and then all throughout the Q4 timeline of the year of the snake, we actually went up. Now, this, of course, was all happening during a solar cycle. So that's why I'm opening up my mind and I'm considering what happened back in our last cycle regarding the second move up before the second lunar eclipse of our solar cycle. And I know this is where it starts to get very complicated. So just please don't get confused right now. It's just me trying to say that sure, we can move up pretty dramatically into February, March of this upcoming year, but we could also have a major correction and then not be finished. It's very positive news, but that doesn't mean it's going to feel good because this correction that we got was 55% for Bitcoin. And for a lot of altcoins, it was 70%. That would be like imagining a 70% correction happening in March, April, May. Most people aren't going to be able to stomach that, but you're aware of this in advance. something we've been talking about for quite a while here. So this is a pretty cool thing to be aware of so far in advance, and how when we look and zoom in at where we topped out, it was literally just like a week before the second lunar eclipse of our solar cycle. That would put us at the end of August or the beginning of September. Also, the new moon that we have in August will be on August 22nd. It's very close to what I just said. And Bitcoin favors topping out on either a new moon or very close to a new moon. Now, when we check in with Bitcoin seasonality, this is how you know we're keeping things fair here on this channel, because I'm not just picking something out randomly that's exoteric or esoteric and I'm just riding with it. I'm trying to get everything I possibly get, gather it all together, weed through it all, and then I provide you with it. You know, I'm really trying to figure out what's going on just as much as you are. And the whole thing here is that it'll never be perfect. It'll never be an exact repeat, but it will have the flavor of what was once done, what once occurred. And that right there, it tells you that you can bet more confidently on this type of knowledge than just throwing a Hail Mary pass into the air and hoping someone catches it. That's gambling. Here we're trying our best to be investors, which is different. You know, when we do the gambling stuff, it's with the venture capital. 1, 2, 3% max positions in your portfolio. Sure, throw $100 in there at an absolute shitcoin, and if it rides the wave of alt season, you might do very well. But when it comes to our overall investment thesis, you can't treat it like that. You can't treat it like gambling. And that's the whole purpose of adding in this extra layer of gematria, numerology, and astrology, and then also coming back and looking at the data. You can't just disregard the data, right? And once you see cyclical patterns, then you could start to feel very confident about what it is that you're putting your money into, right? So we need to check in with Bitcoin seasonality here. It's clear to me that when we talk about the months of August and September for Bitcoin specifically, these are literally the two outlier months that are in the negatives. And I personally took the time to look through the Bitcoin chart, and the only example that I could find of a really bullish August, believe it or not, was in 2017. Besides that, like nothing looks good. And the same goes for September, which is our only actual red month for Bitcoin when you look at Bitcoin seasonality going all the way back to 2010, the genesis of Bitcoin. So now this definitely has me thinking, right? And it requires me to perhaps do an isolated decode after we see how the next months transpire, because we already had our move up after the final solar eclipse of our solar cycle, and we've made it to the important psychological level of 100K Bitcoin. And since we've seen resistance, undoubtedly, but overall holding strong considering the volatility that's going on in the stock market right now. That last Federal Reserve FOMC meeting really shook up the markets, and we're seeing some insane chop lately since that moment, which is funny because in November, you all remember, most investors were ultra positive following the Trump victory. And now these same investors are becoming bearish again because of Fed policy. But remember, we had a Federal Reserve FOMC meeting on November 6th, the day after the election. It's just bread and circus to keep everyone entertained while the market dances, right? And it was clear to me, and it could have been clear to everyone else too who knows how to read charts, that the stock market in particular, especially the NASDAQ, was overheated. It was due for a correction. And we're going to be bringing in another very important element to this, which I know you've probably heard already. It's dealing with 1964. We're going to recap that again too, because we're about to wrap up the year. So first things first is seeing how January and February of 2025 play out. And for the exoteric conversation, we know the next FOMC meeting is at the it's at the very end of January, literally on the day of Chinese New Year, the year of the snake, about a week after or so, a little bit over a week after Trump's inauguration. Now, we clearly have a very precarious market at this time. Nobody can deny that. Which is actually quite typical leading into the end of the year. There's plenty of reasons for this, whether it be for tax loss harvesting, just reallocating portfolios on any level. You know, I mean, it depends if we're talking institutional level or if we're talking on the retail level because of some changes that have gone down in the tax code. So I'm just kind of like shooting off the top of my dome right now, trying to let you know of some of the reasoning why this could be going down on an exoteric level. But we also have to remind ourselves, we have the World War III scenario, we have UAP sightings everywhere, we have polarizing political leadership all over the realm, the death spiral of fiat money, and uncertainty in general regarding jobs, artificial intelligence and robotics becoming more advanced as the technocrats literally show us what they have in store for us for 2025. It seems likely that 2025 is the quote unquote beginning of the end when it comes to the old world order. And I'm not sad about that. I don't think that's a problem either. I think it's an incredible opportunity. It just depends on how well you prepared yourself and how serious you're taking things. So although many of these things that I just listed before have become evident since the C-19 lockdowns, but it's not really in our faces with things like humanoid robots or driving robo-taxis and advanced AI chatbots replacing the way we research information or look for answers. I'd say the Aquarian essence is literally right around the corner. And we should all know by now, blockchain is their number one weapon that they'll use to form against us. So we have to be cautious in the way we navigate this terrain. My suggestion is, and always has been, just invest in this stuff. But prepare your exit strategy accordingly so that you can roll over this new wealth into something truly honorable, something that you can actively be a part of without being stuck in this waiting game. Be the change in the world that the world needs right now. And this is the energy that's motivated me to dedicate 2025 to launching WatersAbove University. Because I know for a fact, investing or trading is only one part of life. There's a lot of other critical elements to life, and to have this thing called bliss. That sometimes these things get neglected when one puts too much of their energy and focus into this game of investing. I'm just saying this right now because it's something that needs to be said. So for me, when we look at the 2025 year, numerologically, 2025 is all about balance, but the fact that this year adds up to a 9, 2 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9, that's the number of the ego, because the number always comes back to itself. I could just show you really quick. We have 9 plus 9, 9 doubled, is 18. You have 1 plus 8, or reducing 18 becomes 9. You could do the same thing with 9 plus 9 plus 9. You have 27. 27 reduced, 2 plus 7 equals 9. The number always comes back to itself. It's the number of the ego. So 2025 will be important in many ways, but it'll be the opportunity for us to strengthen our egos. Remember, you don't want to kill your ego or have this thing called an ego death, because your ego is your co-pilot. You don't just want to shoot your co-pilot in the head and throw them out of the plane and then expect the rest of the flight to go smoothly. Although, if one has a weak ego, it might seem sensible to kill it. That's not a long-term solution though, because what you do in the process by doing such, it kills your structure. What would be perhaps more ideal is for you to just take a moment to reassess the damage in your structural foundation and work on those damages to bring strength back into the integrity of the system. And then you could thank me later. See, healing the ego and strengthening the ego provides work, provides its effort. And that's the opportunity 2025 has for all of us to finally put in the work that you were probably holding off on in 2020 or perhaps even 2019. And the quality of reality in 2020 was likely all because of either not paying attention or not taking action the year prior. And it's always the case. Right? You need to have a plan. You need to have a vision. You have to know where you're headed. You have to have a destination. You have to have a target. And when you have that, you could then have clarity. But when you don't have that, it's hard to be clear. It's hard to have focus. It's hard to have determination. It's hard to have a vision. So it's important because this is the year for all of us to finally put in that work or get swept into the corner of the old age. And I'm just speaking from the heart right now, although I know it sounds a little brash, but again, someone needs to say it. Getting back to this number 9 and the focus on crypto, Bitcoin's ticker symbol, BTC, it adds up to 9 in Chaldean. This aligns with that 2025 year, 2 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. And we'd call this year 25 for short, right? Just like BTC is 25. And we also have the Hebrew year of 5,785 that gives you 25 as well. Perfect synchronicity. 25 is esoterically 2 5s. That becomes 55, just like Satoshi Nakamoto gives you 55 and multiple ciphers. And it's important to bring this up because on April 5th of next year, this mythological archetype, Satoshi, will turn 50 years old. And this number 50 is the biblical Jubilee number, as the Shemitah year, or the 7-year sabbatical cycle. 7 cycles of 7 becomes 49. And then after your 49th year, the completion of this super cycle, it is complete with the apex predator celebrating biblical jubilee on the 50th year. And Satoshi will be experiencing this for the year 25, the 2-5 year, which is almost making me wonder, does the typical impact of the lunar cycle apply to 2025 with this nuance? Or does Satoshi's jubilee cancel it out? That's pretty interesting, and that's something I'm definitely keeping in my mind for future analysis and decodes. But let's check out the S&P 500 chart, because I want to show you what happened in the last Jubilee. Going to be pulling up the Dow Jones. Going to shut off all the noise. Actually, no, I shouldn't, because this red box here is the Shemitah year. You could see we topped out in January 2022, which, by the way, we typically like to do that during the beginning of a Shemitah year. Then we follow it with a huge correction. And if you look at the end of the Shemitah year, which would have been the start of the Jubilee, the end of 2022, you can see that right around Rosh Hashanah was when the stock market bottomed. Absolutely insane. Then until Rosh Hashanah 2023, or the end of Jubilee, we had an incredible recovery during that time. And look at what month the stock market topped before the final correction, before this Jubilee was over. August. I was just talking about this moments ago in regards to our current lunar cycle that we're about to move into in 2025 next year. So could this all be giving us some clues to how Bitcoin will trade next year in the year of the snake, which will be pretty much a month from now? Exactly. And then I also have that full-length decode coming out for the year of the snake right before Chinese New Year. Probably a week before is what I'm aiming for, just to have it out in advance like I usually do. This will be a continuation of a series that I've been keeping up on pretty much since the year of the tiger. And if anyone wants a sneak peek of that decode, it's already included within that crypto decoding blueprint, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. And that's included in the decoding mastermind. So anyone who has the decoding mastermind course, you'll have that sneak peek of the year of the snake. You'll have the full crypto decoding blueprint, and you'll also have the new Trinity masterclass. No additional price, all the same, crazy value. So if you're interested in that, remember I have this end of the year sale for New Year's live for the next couple days. Now, since I brought in the element of the stock market, and I've been keeping my focus on the next phase for this bull run, likely for the next 2-3 months or so before the start of our lunar cycle. I think it's important to check back in with the S&P 500 chart during the year of the Wood Dragon in 1964, which is something we've been tracking, and I think we should definitely continue to track. So we're heading back to 1964. Again, same exact Chinese year as we are in as we speak. And when I get to late 1964 and align it with where we are now, we can see that this is also playing out very similarly, where instead of dumping into the election and then continuing to correct for about 2 weeks following election results, we actually held steady, and then we even moved higher after the election in November 1964, which is exactly what we did here in 2024. Then after topping in late November, we had a correction into mid-December, again, exactly like we just did recently. And then it took until about mid-January of the following year to continue into price discovery before topping out in actually initially on January 29th. Let me zoom in and show you. Literally, January 29th. That's the day of our next FOMC meeting and Chinese New Year. It's pretty crazy, right? So the start of the year of the wood snake, which is just a couple days apart in comparison to last year and 1965 examples. Then this led to some chop, as you can see here, that we effectively got out of by April and then topped out on May, call it May 13th, 1965. And then we had a pretty substantial correction into late June 1965. Now, it's pretty interesting about this correction right here is that the first eclipse of the year 1965 was on May 30th, right around here. And then you look at how the stock market topped before that eclipse, then it had the biggest correction of the entire year during that specific alt season. And 2 weeks before that specific eclipse was when the market peaked. And if we were to look at 2 weeks before our first eclipse of 2025, that would be the very end of February into the very beginning of March. Sounds like something I've been saying for a while, right? So regarding the first initial peak of our alt season. Now, what's really promising about all of this is that after this dramatic correction that we had here during eclipse season of 1965, the market actually recovered into the following eclipse season, which was in November. So whatever the hell happened after this correction, it was just a buying opportunity because we ended up going higher. And then we peaked out right there in January, pretty much January 1966. Then we had a micro double top before a crazy correction. And this aligns with the year of the horse in 1966. And I personally do feel the same way about 2026, the upcoming year of the horse. It's likely to be a downtrend year, which will, of course, be an amazing buying opportunity across the board. And that's kind of the idea here for the launching of WatersAbove University. It's like building wealth with some of the investments being made whilst that's happening throughout 2025, creating business, creating cash flow, creating something that's stable and something that brings in returns more regularly. And then as we're finalizing that bull run, de-risking, taking profits, and then with all these skills that you gathered in WatersAbove University, we're now rolling all of that over into this insane opportunity that's ahead of us in 2026. And I know that's a very far out vision, but again, like you look at the success rate or the failure rate of most businesses or most brands, it's about a 2 to 3 year horizon. And I believe they'll fail even quicker now with things like artificial intelligence because there's too much competition and too much saturation. So what this all means in plain English is whatever you create, it has to be about you. It has to be what is going on uniquely and genuinely in your reality, because that is what will resonate the most with people. What we're going to see happen more and more as we transition into 2025 is all these companies are going to start using AI, and there's not going to be that human component anymore. And that's where you'll come in. That's where I'll come in. That's exactly why I am not scared or worried about what's coming soon, because in my opinion, there will always be a desire to work with real people. And I actually think there'll be a lot of activism in the process. So if anything, when there's more activism of people being anti-AI and anti-humanoid robots, that'll bode in your favor even better, you know? So that's personally how I feel. And I think I'm pretty much spot on about this belief because I know the human essence. We're resilient and we don't want to fail. And it's only the failure that happens to those who don't keep trying. So don't let this AI like doom and gloom shit get in your consciousness right now as a negative thing. If anything, it's the most beautiful opportunity for all of us. So getting back to this 1966 year and the idea of the year of the horse, I feel like it's going to be the same way. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. One last thing to mention about 1966, as you can see here in this red box, it was a Shemitah year. So that'll be one distinct difference for 2026 because we don't have another Shemitah year until late 2028. Now, remember, the last year of the snake was in 2001. And we all know what happened in 2001, the 9/11 ritual in New York City. We also had the invasion of Afghanistan and that big war starting to kind of progress quite dramatically, even though it's an ongoing thing, since the Gulf War and even earlier. But the point that I'm making here is we all know that trigger event of 9/11. That was a very pivotal moment, even for most of us consciously, right? A lot of people, when you ask them, like, when did you wake up? Most people say 9/11 or something related to the revealing the exposure of what 9/11 really was, so that was a key moment, and it happened during the year of the snake. Keep that in mind, because we're moving into the year of the snake just in a month. And arguably the most iconic year of the snake was 1929. And perhaps some of you remember this year when it comes to studying markets, when it comes to studying finance, because it's the year of the Wall Street crash of 1929 that led to the Great Depression in 1930. And what was 1930? The year of the horse. And that crash happened in October 1929. And keep this in mind, the stock market started to top out at the very beginning of September 1929, before the crash in the year of the snake. And what happens next year in September? We have the next or second lunar eclipse in our lunar cycle that I mentioned earlier. And so far, Bitcoin has never been able to push bullish past this eclipse without having a major market correction. So that's why I am thinking about this Satoshi Jubilee year and how that could very much be playing a role in it all, especially with the way things are going for Bitcoin on the institutional level. Regardless if you believe in it or not, it doesn't matter at this point. It's always proven itself to continue to go up in value. Obviously, there's many reasons why that's the case. It's not just necessarily all because of the scarcity mechanism that's built into it or the block rewards halvings, or I'm not even trying to go there. I'm just saying that people speculate on it, and it's been speculated on since it was a penny. And as long as they continue to speculate on it up to $100,000 and so on, then there's no need to argue. Just be a conscious individual, see it for what it is. Don't make it tribal. Don't be a Bitcoin maxi, of course. Don't be somebody who's a maxi in anything, because at the end of the day, that doesn't suit you. That just is what turns out to be a cult. And this is the same way I've been talking since I started the channel 4 years ago. It's important that you stay balanced here and don't disregard data. Just like I said earlier, sure, I have everything pointing to August and September, but I'm not going to disregard the fucking data. That would be a lie. I can't lie to you guys. You could just pull up this shit for yourself and say, oh, well, Waters said that August and September is good, but clearly not. Clearly not good. You're right. But we have to take everything into account here. So I hope this isn't confusing you. It's just to say that when we have something exoteric and we have something esoteric and they're starting to clash, that's where decoding comes into play, because then you could start to pick and just work through things that might not be consistent with the current market conditions and the current consciousness of society comparatively to what was going on in the dot-com bubble, right? You can't just take the dot-com bubble and then copy and paste everything identical to what would be happening in 2025. The same thing with what I'm saying right now about the 1929 Wall Street crash. I'm not saying that it's going to go exactly like that. It's just I find it to be fascinating how it was at the end of the year of the snake, moving into the year of the horse, and we have plenty of times where we've seen that transition of late snake year into the whole year of the horse is kind of fucked up. And you would have been very happy if you knew this information before this moment showed up. Why? Because right before this moment, the market was in pure euphoria. Everyone thought they were a genius. Everyone thought that they were the richest, smartest, most successful investor on earth. And then within one calendar month later, they were worried. Then they started getting really anxious. Then they thought, this is not good. What's going on here? And then it led to something that floored the whole economy, right? So that's why I'm trying to tell you all of this. It's not to say that it will go identical to every time before, just like this time around, perhaps because of Satoshi's Jubilee, the next August might turn out very, very nicely. Also, when you have the data for the the Dow Jones, August is literally the best performing month during presidential election years, and it's one of the best performing months during even regular election years too. There's no discrepancy like you would get with this or over here, or even this example, right? Where you could see a negative presidential election year, but then quite a solid move for November, same month, but non-presidential election years, or September, quite deep in the red when it comes to regular years, but on presidential election years, fine. Well, August, if you were to combine that data, it's pretty incredible. And the same thing with July. July and August combined, either if it's a presidential election year or not, it's looking promising. So is that the way it could go? And then we get hit with a September surprise or an October surprise for the year of the snake. Would you be shocked? Probably not at this point. You guys are used to this stuff. So it's kind of my feelings too. I'm thinking everything's going to work like a ripple effect of time. And I don't want to take up too much of your time with this theory, but perhaps some of you will really appreciate it. It's something I brought up in the past, but it has to do with the way Trump's presidency ended was with C-19 in March. I'm thinking it happens in reverse this time, where he starts his presidency with an event in March. Instead of ending it with March, he starts it with something in March. And then it's working like a perfect mirror reflection. I'm not going to say that I think it's a C-19 or thing related to that. I know they're doing all they can right now with mainstream media to try to like push that narrative again with a different animal, but I don't necessarily think it'll be successful, even if they try. I think it's a distraction for something else, and it could have to do with these UAPs, UFOs, alien, more of that stuff. Again, all kind of just a big psyop. If I had to be honest with you, it's all just a big fucking psyop to get you to be distracted and to get people to panic sell and to get people to not really know how to maneuver during times of panic. And I think that's why I am going to be very cautious moving into Q1, especially when we start transitioning into Q2. If we are handsomely in profits by February, I will not be sitting on my ass thinking we're just going to keep going higher forever. And if I'm wrong and we push up into April and then we have a big correction in May, then I'm at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you were still profitable. So I'm not trying so much to time this market once I'm given the exact market that I'm dealing with in that moment. But if I have 6 months, 1 year in advance of knowing how things are likely to go, then when the time shows up, I could then be very clear of what I'm analyzing in the now. I hope that makes sense. To me, it's like, imagine you were somebody who is a rock climber and you have to study the wall you're about to scale, the cliff side that you're about to scale. You would be paying attention to every little detail on that way up, but you can't account for wind. You can't account for rain when it's time to do the actual climb. Does this help get you to understand what I mean by this? You can study the exact same climb every fucking day for 6 years straight, but then when it's game time, you don't know if a bald eagle will land on your hands while you're climbing. You don't know if it'll start hailing while you're climbing. You don't know. Nobody knows in the now. That's why if you have the passion to put into it day to day for all of that time horizon to learn what it's likely to be like, you'll be prepared for that variable when the time comes, because everything else you put in the hard work to understand. That's like a really clippable moment right there. It's probably something I should maybe talk about again in the future, because I think it's applicable to what we're dealing with here in markets and why people struggle so much in the now when it comes to what's going on with the day-to-day fluctuations. But anyways, getting back to the 1929-1930 situation, that was tied to October. The 9/11 ritual happened in September. We talked about the September move already. We also discussed how the stock market has a pretty nice July and August, all things considered. And pretty much everything points to July and August to be like our potential fourth quarter Hail Mary pass that hopefully all of us catch to capture the winning touchdown before the game is over and the music stops. And it seems still likely that we'll have our typical lunar cycle correction for post-March, specifically with emphasis on April, May, and even June. And then for July, August, recovery. And that's kind of the way that I'm looking at things right now. I'm giving you information that's 7-8 months out. And again, A lot more details on that are covered within the crypto decoding blueprint. And if you needed an exit strategy, which is not the same as the crypto decoding blueprint, the exit strategy will actually teach you what you can be de-risking at when those time frames come. So those two blueprints go very well hand in hand together. Again, we'll cover that more in depth when we're closer to that time frame. But for now, I'm pretty certain I've left you all with a ton of food for thought for how this transition into 2025 should go from a timing perspective. Now let's get into some of these charts, finalizing our Bitcoin analysis and moving into the Ethereum recap, as well as the, as I promised, XRP yearly analysis, and then we'll get into the altcoins you guys voted on for this week's Red Pill. Let's pull up Bitcoin index chart and do what we do. All right, we got to look at the monthly because we're about to close that couple days into New Year's. And this monthly, I have to admit, I do not like this. It's not looking so good. This candle structure, it looks like a top structure. Looks like that in April 2021. This type of candle I don't love, but this is why we always look at larger time frames, because when I look at the bi-monthly, this looks pretty fucking good, especially after all this sideways that we had, chop retesting the double top from the last cycle. I would say that's fair to say that this bounce right here is a sign of us moving into price discovery and continuing to move further into price discovery. Now, when we look at the 3-month candle, it looks incredible. When we look at the 4-month candle, amazing, 61%. And then, of course, when we look at the yearly, 125%. If we were to go back to the bi-monthly and we peek in at the RSI, you're going to see right over here, we're at about 77, 76 on the bi-monthly RSI. And when we look at where most cycles top out, we have over here 91, we have over here 98, we have over here 94, we have over here. So the 90s is about where we gas out on the bi-monthly RSI. So that's something to keep in mind perhaps for the February candle, or if not, even deeper into the cycle, like I said, if we are to get that double peak cycle to play out. Let's look at the bi-weekly, because we do have a bi-weekly close right now, and I also do not like this. This is not my favorite candle to be seeing right now. To be complete, yeah, this is not the most gorgeous candle at all, but the one thing to say is that we are high above the 8 simple moving average. So even our shortest term moving average, we're quite a ways above. And when we, again, stay zoomed out and turn on some of our other indicators, we'll see that all of our moving averages are in a bullish posture. We have the 8 above the 13, 21, 34, 55, and the 200s at the bottom. So that doesn't look as bad now. Also over here, this is where we're starting to see some weakness on the weekly chart. And that was the first thing that I started this with, kind of saying that I do not love the way this is looking from the monthly perspective. And now with the weekly also, it's holding. You know, it's holding the 8, but popping up into tonight for this weekly close, I think would be good. Then again, when we look at the moving averages, look at over here where they're all coiled together because we hyperextended above them. Then we started some chop sideways. They all coiled up and then we expanded again. Well, right now we're in a similar posture where we're seeing all of these are splayed out nicely, and it's very bullish in general, like when you zoom out. But it's the sign of stalling out, you know, and that's the one thing that we don't want to see at this stage, in my opinion. I think Bitcoin has to at least get to the mid 100K territory before it would really fleece as many people as possible, you know, because 108 or wherever it hit, like that's still pretty incredible that we got there. But the rejection and the way that we rejected off the FOMC meeting is horseshit. You know, that's complete nonsense. And the market's still being so Fed driven. I also have my own, you know, kind of things to say about that. But the long story short here is that it was all orchestrated and designed for that particular event. And that's kind of not reality, in my opinion. Like, this is all hyper speculative nonsense drama that's going on in the market post Fed Chair Powell speaking. And we're kind of good to go all the way until the end of January. So I'm thinking to myself, if we were to stall out now and then perhaps, and I know this sounds scary, but if perhaps we were to dip back to like 81, and I needed to say this because we don't exactly know what could go down in the time frame between now and Trump's inauguration. We all have to admit this time frame has already been fucking crazy, right? Like the amount of nonsense that's been going on in the world stage. So I am not calling for an 81K Bitcoin, but with the idea of an 81K Bitcoin, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the altcoins will get completely toasted, although it won't feel good. It won't be positive at all. But the reason I bring this up is because during a bull run, specifically the one of 2020 or 2017, we had these moments where we stalled out and then we backtested the 21 EMA. Then we went up again, we stalled out, we backtested the 21 EMA, and the way we bounced off of it was epic. Okay, here you can see that we were back up almost 30% in the following week. Following week from the lows, we were at 30% up. So it's like a flash correction. Here we just closed the week looking super red, but then the following week we were up 45%. Same situation here. Same situation here. That correction right there, it would fuck everyone up mentally and like emotionally, but that's what the market maker does during the middle of a bull run. We had something similar happen over here, and I know it's not noticeable, but when you look at from the top to the bottom of the correction, it was a 30% move. Some of you might remember that. If we were to pull from where we've currently hit down to the 21 EMA, it would be at about a 24% move. That is not the most dramatic correction this far in the bull run. We already had a 31%. Over here, what was it, 22? Technically, maybe 20 on the nose. Yeah, maybe 20 on the nose. Here, 30. Thus far, we've actually only had a fucking 12% correction. So this is not that bad. I'm just giving everyone like this awareness. If they were to do something to us that looks like this, where it's just a really quick flash out, it would probably have to do something with the kind of what the apex predator has been planning for us for 2025. And they're going to use the Trump character and other globalist politicians to kind of persuade the public into everything's okay, everything's fine, everything's going to be good. But it's like, I don't think there's anything that these guys can do to avoid a recession and avoid some serious issues in the economy with what the Fed has been doing over the past 4 to 5 years specifically. It's just, you can't keep kicking the can down the road. And the amount of liquidity they've injected into this market artificially, mostly on leverage, proves my point. So I don't want to get too fancy now with my ideas, but I think what I'm saying probably resonates with many people. When we start to stall out right here at this level, it starts to feel precarious, as I said earlier, but it does not mean it is over. And you just got to zoom out. And if we are to get flashed down to an uncomfortable level, the speed of the buyback is something that I would very much anticipate. And although the fact that we're correcting right now and holding sideways into this exact time of year, the very end of this year, is more than likely just exoteric things that are unfolding that we talked about earlier. Just moving portfolio around, doing some de-risking, perhaps some tax loss harvesting for people that bought a couple months ago. I don't know why anyone would really be doing that strategy right now, though, because most people are up. But yeah, holding right now on the daily on the 55 simple moving average is nice to see, but I think once we see a wolf cross where the 8 goes below the 55, that's when we could have some danger to the downside. And if this can't hold here at 90K flat, which was a 1 week of chop before we started to go a little bit higher, this right here is a sign. Can't hold this, drop in 81. Let me look at the okay, so when we go back to the first full moon of the month, we were at 97K, and that means we've been flat the entire month. Technically, we've been flat. And I think I learned something here, and it's perhaps something that I guess won't really be applicable for another 2.5 years, because we only have these black moons every 2.5 years, or blue moons, I think, or maybe a little sooner, I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah, I suppose they're an energetic cancellation And I would have to go look through some other black moons to see if that's the case. But all in all, when my Black Moon Decoded came out, I was very clear on a couple things. One of which was 100K Bitcoin before the end of the year. And the next thing was the idea that we were likely moving up regardless of what was going on with the election or what was going on with the Fed or any of that shit. It was just all about the eclipses. So far, all of those conditions are met. During that Black Moon Decoded, I never said anything dramatic like to expect a 200K Bitcoin or to expect a 60K Bitcoin, meaning that we would have been sideways and not made any progress between that decode releasing and that time frame. We pretty much nailed where to expect Bitcoin to be, and definitely with XRP. Now it's like this constrictive energy into the final days of the year, and we're just going to have to see how that transpires. Probably be having more clarity by the first week of January, and I think way more clarity once the inauguration's out of the way, because Trump is going to come in and he's going to start doing stuff that is wild, right? Like, he's already talking a big talk, and I think if he doesn't come out and execute even 10% of the things that he's been talking about, that in and of itself can bring some problems. But then the other side of things is if he is to implement the things that he's saying he wants to do immediately, then that will bring a lot of problems, because it's so polarizing, right? It's the first president we've had in pretty much since I don't even know historically that has talked up this many changes and actually wants to execute them like day one in office. You know what I'm saying? And these have a very dramatic, the ramifications of these changes are going to create a wild ripple effect. So I have no opinion in this. I'm not going to get into any of his policies. I'm not picking a side here. I'm just playing that neutral path and letting you all know that he's a very polarizing figure for this whole market. And if it is true that everything was positive because he won, then I suspect we're in that lull phase where it's about getting him into that position for sure. And then now all the confusion's away and everyone can FOMO in to the final phase of the bull run. You know, I think that's pretty much sounds like the perfect mix of opinions for how the next month is likely to go. Let me go over to to Ethereum. Ooh, we already got the Wolf Cross on the daily. I do not like that. So what we're going to look for is the 200s on the bottom. And with the fact that the 200 EMA has effectively gotten to this cluster over here at 3K, then 3K to me is a psychological level. But we have yet to fill this wick that came in on Friday the 20th. And if I was to pull up Doge, I think that's the same case. We have yet to fill the wick. Let me pull up ADA. We have yet to fill the wick. Let me pull up Aave. We have not filled. Aave's looking fucking awesome. Let's look at Solana. Is probably not the best example right now because of the recovery that it's had from the last bear market, you know, like fucking 1,000%. It's crazy. It's like a VeChain hasn't filled the wick. So all things considered, that flash correction that happened on the 20th was a clear sign of the market maker trying to get leverage out of the market. And but this Wolf Cross is not nice from a technical perspective, so I don't love to see that. I'm just being 100% honest. Let me look at the yearly though. Oh, god damn. That is fucking crazy. Look, if you look at January 2020, we were coming up to the resistance of the 2017 yearly candle, just like we are now. It's crazy. Okay, like I am feeling good about this because this candle was 400 fucking percent. The following candle, it's like it's dealing with yearly resistance exactly at the same time. Holy shit. Dude, if it even does half of that, we're hitting 10K. 10K ETH, 11K ETH, which isn't the craziest bull run of all time, but it's still pretty fucking impressive. I mean, if fucking ETH goes to 10K, what do you think that's going to do to all the other ERC20s? That's what it's going to do to the rest of the market. Also, what is it going to do to gas fees and all the shit that runs on Ethereum? Not good. Not good. No bueno. Okay. Like, I mean, I don't really need to say more. I think that's pretty clear. It's like a 4 month. 4 month is dealing with the same resistance. 3 month, it's kind of, yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's doing pretty good. If we can get above 3,500 would be good. If we can get, I don't think we could do that. We could do it. If we can get above 3,700 on ETH, that would look much, much better. So that at least we're closing a 3 month candle on higher highs and not, yeah, right here with clear resistance, dude. ETH just fucking is struggling at 3,300, and that shouldn't surprise you guys from the gematria side of things because ETH equals 33. 33s. All right. I think this yearly resistance thing is pretty much all I need to say right now. That's pretty clear to me, the structure, that it's just coming up into the same time frame, and then Q1 should be pretty amazing. Also, sorry for this chair that I have. It's really squeaky. I've probably been hearing it the whole podcast. I apologize. It's horrible. If it's bad for you, think about how bad it is for me. But okay, let's get into the weekly. Big washout, 17% down in a week. That's very dramatic. Where's the daily at with the RSI? Okay, the RSI is super low right now for an altcoin. Yeah, this is dramatic. This correction was way too fucking dramatic. Same thing for the stock market. It was just really, really reactive to the Fed meeting. So it's kind of just sideways. I can't really update too much because it's just the same thing that I said last week. Okay, let's get XRP weekly, monthly, macro. This is gorgeous. Okay, if we can clear where we're at right now, if XRP can just hold $2 fucking into the yearly close, that will be epic. Epic. 4-month looking gorgeous. 3-month looking great. 2-month looking fucking good. Monthly looking a little high on the wick to the upside. That's not the nicest thing, but the fact that we're potentially closing green, that's good, because you don't want to see a big green candle followed by a noticeable red candle, which was the structure here, the structure here, the structure here, and the structure here, which was after the SEC, the first big win in the Ripple case where judge declared XRP not a security. So having a green candle here is pretty good. But the bi-monthly, 3-month, 4-month, so the quarterly, etc., they're looking good. Yearly looks awesome. Let's look at the bi-weekly. Yeah, bi-weekly is looking weak like Bitcoin. Same kind of like topping structure. So just drama in reaction to this FOMC, clearly. Everything's just dealing with Bitcoin effectively. You could see it with Bitcoin dominance too. Like when Bitcoin initially took off in November, and then we saw all the altcoins catching up a little bit after, and then we saw Bitcoin dominance start to stabilize. So it's very, very nice setup, kind of what we had happen in the 2020 cycle into 2021. It's what we had in the 2017 cycle. Same rotation, but like an early rotation, not the full-blown end of the alt season though. Okay, weekly, yeah, be 3 weeks in a row on the red side. It would be nice if we could pop up a little bit green. It would only require us to get to, 3% more on the end of the week. We could do it. It's possible. But at this time, whenever you're higher than the 8 simple moving average on the weekly, you're kind of getting into a quote unquote more expensive territory because you're, just look at how high above the 200s we are. Jesus. 200% above the 200 moving averages. We went from it being flatlined. You look at the green moving averages, we went from them being flatlined to just a straight line breakout. It's a very unhealthy breakout, but this is the way XRP likes to move. The way it moves is very unhealthy. But that's where the gains are. The gains are in dramatic unhealthy moves. So then we could address this bull flag if you want to entertain this. It's hard to even determine where would be the true flagpole, but somewhere in this chop could be fair, perhaps on this retest of the 8 simple moving average. But I'm not even going to entertain this right now because we already have our technical targets to the upside, and any patterns that form along the way are usually distractions, but what they could help us at least identify is supports and resistances. Okay, and it's clear that we have a falling resistance here. And we have had this 20th candle not fill out on the wick. So ideally, we would want to close back above $2.35 for XRP. Although if I really had to be honest, from a technical perspective, I would want to see 260. So if we can get 260 and better yet, 265 on a daily close, then I'd feel very confident that this pattern is behind us. I'm just going to quickly take a sip of water. Okay, so this is the 2 tops that you would need to get above. And until then, yeah, we're just kind of chopping right now. But if I was to show you what it looked like back in 2017, you would see that it's the same. It's literally the same move that we're doing at the same phase. So we're talking about right here. We ran up from basically being flatlined at the lows. We went straight to the prior all-time highs. And then from this candle to breaking out again took about 32 days. And we're in this phase right here where we're just slowly moving to the downside. I know it looks crazy. Let me turn this off and maybe it'll be nicer looking. I'll show you two examples side by side. That's it. And if we were to take 32 days off of this move right here, it puts us to pretty much the beginning of January. But the structure, the way that it's chopping and then it's making lower lows and then it just has this pivot moment where it pops up, that's to me exactly what's happening. It's just the way that it's happening here at $2 isn't going to be the exact same as it was when it was 3 cents. But when you zoom out, you're going to see what I mean. Zoom out here. Put on the 2-day. So you see the way that it's trading, prior all-time high, big move in the middle, recovery back to prior all-time highs. It's the same where we're at, pretty much back at all-time highs. And then we're getting this chop now, which is right here. It's the same. Now what we need is expansion, so we need to concretely break into new all-time highs, which should effectively be just a couple weeks away if all things were to pan out. And then also that would make sense with Bitcoin too, because Bitcoin has this movement anticipated for the end of January. And if it's going to start moving into 120, 130K and so on, it better get moving soon, because the more it holds this level right now, or if it starts closing lower, then it starts looking weaker. So this is one of those things where, like with crypto, we always have one of these weird downside moves before we pop higher. Like I remember it back here. You see this? Big move to the downside before we push higher. Here, we just chopped, lowest move, and then we popped higher. It's very common with crypto, where we have this weird chop to the downside, chop, oh, it gets scary again, then pop, we go up. Here we had this nasty correction. Here we had the V shape. That was the move that we were tracking prior. Here we have this right over here, just chop, pivot on a really scary day, and then we move up. It's always like really scary before it gets super positive again. So the fact, if you're feeling any fear right now, it's not weird. It's pretty much designed that way. Let's get through some of these altcoins. We have Icon. It's been a while since I've covered this, I think. Looking at the 2-day, we have a crazy chart here because this is the 2018 market when Bitcoin was like 19,700. Here we have when Bitcoin was 69,000 or 69,000. And then here we have Bitcoin is at almost 100K. And this project is still quite down. So this is one of those plays that it would be best if we have an overall alt season for all the 2017 projects, but it hasn't even caught up to the XRP move, which to me, it seems that then there's no attention here. There's no attention going into this project Icon, and there has been less and less attention going into it pretty much since it experienced that first crazy alt season back at the end of 2017 into the beginning of 2018. I don't know if I could be too fancy with these trend lines right now because it's all just play, but getting back above this 0.5 fib, and then I think you're making it into this 786 to 888 territory. And then if that's the case, which I had these lines drawn in my last analysis, we're talking about 3,000% move. So this doesn't even need to break into all-time highs. Just getting back to the golden pocket from here is a 2,000% move. And this is why I would call something like this venture capital. So I like the fact that it's still an accumulation zone. It's just, it's not a long-term hold. This might be the last chance if you're holding something like this to get out and then leave it forever. You know, that's not financial advice. I'm just saying that it's going to probably continue to chop sideways and not go into price discovery forever. It would be great if it would, but it's hard to say that it will because of the way things are panning out for the blockchain conversation. And Icon's not part of it, you know, and this market is moving on to newer, sexier things, and it's an attention economy, ultimately, at the end of the day. It's a big reason why XRP, XLM, HBAR, and all of those coins popped off at the same exact time, because the attention that one of them gets spills over into the other ones. You know, they're all just part of the same ecosystem in a sense when it comes to their fame and the attention they get. Clearly not the case here. Icon is a project that I believe I invested in back in the day, but I'm not entirely sure what my play was. I don't know if I even still have it. Might be on like crypto.com app or something. I don't remember. But this is definitely one of those crazy venture capital plays where, like, if we even have a little bit of an alt season and a little bit of liquidity gets pushed into this, then I would be eyeing the 2021 alt season zone of around the 702, and you're talking about 1,000% easily. Not promised, but the data is there. Would you look at this? This is a totally polar opposite chart. So this would be an example of something that's getting a lot of attention and probably has a very serious community behind it, right? You could tell by the chart immediately. Now the chop is pretty crazy though, because here you have a rise of 600% and then a 70% correction. Then you have over here a rise of 2,000%, Jesus. And then you have another 80% correction. What did I tell you guys earlier? Did I not say that on your way up, you could be experiencing 70 to 80% corrections? Well, Render, for instance, went up 10,000%. And in the midst of that, it had an 80% correction. That's reality. So let's track what this bull run has been like. We've gone up over here 600% and then had a 50-something% correction. Then again, another 800% up, followed by a 70% correction. So it's still moving like it once did back here. And I suspect that this impulse right here and what it just dealt with is what it's dealing with here. And that means this thing's going to move into price discovery again soon. Let's explore where it's likely to go. Congratulations to anyone holding on to Render. One thing to say here is when I look at the logarithmic fib pull or the linear fib pull pulling from the swing high to the swing low, we've tapped the 1618, which is kind of like, yeah. But what I could say is I can entertain $35 to $40. That zone right there might be something to consider for any Render holders out there. And I know some people are going to be like, but Waters is going to go so much higher, right? Because I love it. Because I love the coin. It's like, dude, how greedy can we be? If it's to even go to 30, that's a fucking 8,000% correction. So if you're getting mad about this, log out. Log out of life. Too much greed in this market. So yeah, from right here, it's only a 400% move to a 600% move max. Maybe it could get that full extension up to the 1618 for sure. It's possible, but you're buying at the top. You're buying at this would be like kind of buying XRP at $2.80 before anticipating it to go up to potentially $20 or so. And that's very possible. That's why I'm not ruling out the move to the 1618. I'm just saying, you got to think about how this goes when it does get that high. It's probably not going to last there for too long. And when it doesn't last there for too long and it craters and falls over 70% like it did over here, you'll be remembering my warning. I'm not trying to be right. I really don't care about being right. I'm just providing the words of wisdom. Not the cleanest trend line, but again, we're working with an altcoin, and we're working with an altcoin that's been trading since it was 10 cents or less, pretty much since it was 5 cents, and now it's up near $7. So this has been an incredible long-term hold. Anyone who got into Render at pretty much any part of the last cycle and any part of the bear market has been in profits. So definitely something exciting going on here. Definitely a big community behind this, I could already anticipate. I don't know anything about Render, by the way. I'm not really too sure what's going on here. I believe I have tracked a couple of its... I have done a couple red pills on it, I suspect. But yeah, this is looking really good right now. The setup, I just feel that it's very much competing with the prior all-time high zone. If I was to draw some lines across the screen, you know what I mean? So here's your 888, and here is your top, right? And that was your buying climax of the last cycle. We gravitated back to it. We couldn't really expand higher. We returned to retest, broke below it, saw resistance at the prior support, and then now we're still chopping in the same zone. And that's been effectively going on now for 300 days. So that means for the whole year, pretty much render has been chopping between this zone. So it's gassed out, and now it's ready for the overall alt market to do something. And when that's the case, that will be the case for render, and it will likely break above $20 and start heading into the 30s. Now we're looking at Proton. Okay. All right. XPR. Yeah, this is not... Okay, I mean, the only thing I don't like about this is it didn't really do too much at a time where a lot of altcoins were doing very well, which was March, April of this year, around the second solar eclipse of our lunar cycle. No, third solar eclipse of our solar cycle. It doesn't matter. It was around a solar eclipse, total solar eclipse within a solar cycle, and we move bullish typically into them, and then we tend to correct after, especially for altcoins. And that was the case here. But now it's still chopping near the same lows that it was at in December 2022. You know, this is like when Bitcoin was, I don't even know, $16,000. And now today Bitcoin's 95, right? So no real progress here. It hasn't gotten back above the March, April highs. Also still quite near bear market lows. Rejection off the 236. Again, whenever we look at projects like this, it's just venture capital. You need to anticipate that we can have a crazy recovery for this. There's some chop right here that I would keep in mind if I had to share my take on what the alt season move could be like for this. You see right here that once it gets to the 0.5 fib, it can quickly get into the 12 cent area. So keep that in mind, which is all just fib levels, but it's pretty clear. See? End of your buying climax, retest this level, broke below it, and got rejected twice on a micro M pattern. The 702 is everything, and very much important for this chart. But the good news is if you've invested in XPR at these lows over here or over here, that recovery for you is looking like 1,000% move. So I don't know if this can go much higher though. Best is maybe a full-blown macro AR that makes it to the 786, top of the golden pocket, but I don't know if that's necessarily gonna happen. Very much not a community behind this, not the same chart that we were just looking at with like the render example, complete polar opposite actually. And I know some people are like playing on the anagram of XRP and XPR. Obviously that's not the same case at all. Totally different things, but we're all having fun here, aren't we? Let's get to the graph GRT. It's a long one today, but it is the end of the year, so go out with a bang. We have the graph. We're looking, at the graph on a chart. Got some very important lines going on here. First of all, this trend line has been in place since the bottom of the bear market. Actually, almost similar to the last chart we looked at structurally, where it was launched at a similar time, topped at a similar time, bottomed at a similar time. The only difference would be is the graph has been making a reversal structure where we had a bottom, we had a pivot higher low, we had another pivot higher low, and we could confirm that higher low once we break this level at 50 cents. So this is looking good because we have higher, and if I drag this out over here, you're probably gonna see why we rejected, okay? Because after the buying climax, we came down to that level. Like when I zoom in, you'll see 1, 2, 3 touch points, break above, rejection, and then we came back to it but broke lower and then got rejected twice. Micro M pattern. You see every bear market kind of starts the same way, which is cool because I'm teaching you this right now. You could use these skills to prepare yourself for what the next bear market is going to go like. Basically, you want to mark off after the top, where do you pivot And then once you have your bull trap, you really want to save this level, because once you break below this level after coming back down, that's your real bear market kicks in. And you could see off of this rejection, you had a 90% correction. So if you fucked this all up, you could have at least saved your ass from much more deeper losses. And by saving yourself and getting back in at least 85% down, you would have been able to recover all of the losses by just redistributing what you decided to leave the gambling casino with. And you today would probably at least be break even or in profits if you played it nicely. And that was off of a mistake. A lot of people didn't do that. So I'm teaching you like damage control here. Anyways, keep this level of 50 cents in mind. There's not too much more I could say about the graph because it's kind of on the same conversation and context of what I was just looking at with XPR, where I don't have much data from the past, and that means that it's all speculative. And right now the graph is actually in price discovery to the downside, not the upside, which means that it's an absolute gamble. There's no real proof that it's been able to pull off anything historically, and it's not a holding. It's not a project you hold. It's a project you'd probably be planning to trade out of. Render, on the other hand, I don't really know what's going on there. There might be something there because of that chart structure, but again, not enough chart history for me to really feel confident. If it had chart history going back to 2017, 2018, and I could see that and then see how it made it through, some big changes overall, then I could maybe be a little bit more confident about that. But I can't deny that the chart looks amazing. Graph chart looks a lot more like XPR chart, which not the greatest on earth, to be honest. Digibyte, this is a OG project that goes back to like 2013 or something. Yeah, 2014. Would you look at that? All right, so oh, they got it back. Did they get it back? Why is that way? Weird. Anyways, we are still in the same position as like Icon. So this is again like one of those older projects that's not getting the same buzz as it once got. And to me, rejection off the 382 and coming back into the territory of the 236 or the bottom of the last bear market is another sign of weakness overall and not much progress from cycle to cycle. And we can see that we've actually been holding sideways since 2017. So this is the same thing as XRP, but the difference is XRP is trading up here right now. It would be like equivocal to an 11-cent Digibyte, but it's not. Digibyte's trading back where XRP was like at 50 cents, but that's not to say that Digibyte during an alt season can pop back up just as high. The idea here is, does it go into price discovery? And that's what's hard to admit. Especially, I gotta be honest, it's like all the projects that date back as far as like the OG Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and those types, they are not like part of the conversation really anymore, And when it comes to your investment thesis, be aware that even with my investment thesis, that I do hold on to projects that are not necessarily in the spotlight, okay? And the reason is because I'm playing venture capital with them. But one of the things I decided to do about my portfolio this time around was go heavy in the ISO projects, because I knew that once we have this structure broken for XRP, that we will see them all do very well, and that turned out to be the case. And then also to put my money into projects that maybe aren't necessarily in the spotlight, but they're going to do well in catching up to all of those losses they experienced in the last bear market. And you're looking at about 2,000% across the board. And then the other change would be the Dogecoin allocation, putting that in a much higher percentage of my portfolio than I would have even thought I would. That was a big risk for me, but it turned out to be incredibly lucrative. So across the board, those changes were needed, and those are like adaptations that have happened. And I think when we move into the next phase of the alt season, all the speculative venture capital stuff, including things like Digibyte, will likely be at least returning to the golden pocket. So there will be profits. Don't get discouraged about this, but When you look at something like Caspa, and if you got into Caspa at the right time, that had way more attention, way more eyes on it than something like Digibyte. But guess what? Digibyte at one time had a lot of attention. And if you would have bought it back in the day, you would be up 14,000% right now if you bought it anywhere in the middle of the 2014, 2015 market. So I'm not trying to take away the shine of such a performance. This is just in context to the overall chart. It's the same thing with a lot of those 2016, 2015 projects, the few that have made it all the way to this day. So I'm going to end this one here. I really appreciate you guys for tuning into this New Year's Eve special. Again, apologies about the beginning of this one with having to share this update, but it's just important because this is the official deadline and it's absolutely necessary that I warned everyone about us fully going live with this new system. I decided to, instead of doing another lockdown, to instead just share another update, and that way we don't need to do any more lockdowns, and I hope you all just follow the instructions I shared earlier, which again are all covered in this video. And it gives you plenty of time between now, when I posted this initial update yesterday, and December 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, to complete this phase. Again, it takes 30 seconds. And then starting next week, I will have a full new system out for our Discord server connected to our Patreon. We'll have another tutorial update released tomorrow, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time once this is deadline is over. New update for any new members to our mastermind community. And again, if you are new here, I am not sending out any Discord server invites until this deadline is over. So just bear with me. It'll be less than 24 hours. So I really appreciate your patience at this time. Everyone else, wishing you all a beautiful rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.